Ladies and gentlemen, in an unusual turn of event, things have escalated in the Middle East rapidly, and the Houthis and the Saudis are firing each other in a very big way, and oil refineries are hit. And more importantly, the Iranians are also now threatening the United Kingdom. So things are all escalating. There are no good news out of the Middle East, all bad news. And I think it's important for us to brief you because all these have serious implication to the oil prices and as a result, the stock market. Let's just watch on, shall we? So as it stands right now, the Middle East situation is exploding again. The Houthis were being struck by the Saudis, and as a result, they were very unhappy. So now they struck back Saudi Arabia's largest oil refinery called Aramco. And that's quite serious because that's really striking Saudi Arabia where it hurts the most. And the Americans are now planning for a massive attack on Iran. And Donald Trump is now really contemplating that this is the limit of his patience. Now, the Iranians are also now threatening UK, trying to drag UK into the war and warn that the British will be struck as well if they host the United States assets and US allies in the EU, in the Europe theater is also potentially at risk as well. And of course, right now, the Red Sea shipping is now under fire. The Houthis is now shooting at any shipping that they deem Saudi ships, and this is quite serious. So we're not talking about just Iran and US anymore. This is a full-fledged regional war, and now involving many countries. Involves the Iranians, involves the Saudis, involves the Houthis in Yemen, involves the Americans, potentially the Israelis as well. And now the United Kingdom is being dragged in. Two straits are now being involved, and the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf are now all involved in the fight. So this is a full-fledged regional war right now, and they're all very bad because it affects oil prices. So let's quickly talk about the Houthis and the Saudi conflict. Now, they have been in conflict for quite a long time, and I'll cover that shortly. But right now, the Houthis are really mad at the Saudis for attacking them, and they responded and hit really hard at a oil refinery company called Saudi Aramco. Now, Saudi Aramco is a very big oil refinery, and it matters a lot, not just to Saudi Arabia, it matters a lot to the world. It is the world's single largest oil producer. It controls the cheapest oil in the world, and it is the financial backbone and pillar of the entire Saudi government. And the funds itself virtually supports the running of the government. So if you hit Aramco, then you really hit Saudi Arabia right at the heart of the financial health. So the Houthis have now struck the oil refinery of Aramco, and clearly this is something that will spark off a tit for tat and reciprocity. Now, why did the Houthis choose Aramco to hit? Because it is a strategic strike. It will hurt the Saudi economy. It will cut the oil export and potentially shake investor confidence and prove to them that I can hurt you really hard. So don't you dare hit me. Don't you dare strike me. Now, the Saudis are not going to sit back and do nothing. The Saudis will be very angry as well, and the Saudi will have to respond. And once they respond, then that's it. Now, how do we even get to this? Well, between the Saudis and the Houthis, they have a decade of conflict. So it all started in 2014 when the Yemenis Houthis, which are the rebels, they seized Yemen's capital called Sana'a. And in 2015, 1 year later, the Saudi actually launched military intervention, supported the legitimate government, and of course, that caused a very violent response. The Houthis were launching attacks back in 2019. Aramco facilities was being attacked. So this attack today is not the first time. And of course, oil prices spiked overnight. And between 2023 and 2025, there was a ceasefire. No more fight against each other. Was kind of like a fragile peace, but at least there's peace. And suddenly, over the last few days, it all started with an airport strike by the Saudi, or at least Yemenis Houthis claimed that the Saudis were responsible. And then after that, the Saudis were ships were being hit, tankers were being hit. And of course, the Saudi had to respond. The Saudi responded by hitting the Yemenis, and the Yemenis rebels now responded and hit their oil refinery. So basically, no more ceasefire. Now there's a major escalation. So not just the Persian Gulf, which is the war between the Americans and the Iranians, is a big issue, but the Red Sea is now becoming a war zone. Now, these are two different areas, two different theaters, two different war zones. They are not the same war. They're actually two different wars, but both have the same effect. They all escalates the oil prices. So the Houthis right now has basically stopped the shipping of Saudi ships, cut oil exports of the Saudi, and as a result, raise energy prices. So now just to be very clear, about 10 to 12% of the global trade transit to the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandeb Straits. Oil, LNG gas, and food, consumer goods, petroleum products, and things like that, all will now be affected. So we now have two crises, not one crisis. Already the oil crisis between the Iranians and Americans and the blockade that being put up by two navies have now caused oil prices to spike up. But on the other hand, the Red Sea situation is very bad as well. So now it involves oil refinery damage, and that's quite serious. Now, it being hit by itself may not be that big issue in the sense that they got other oil refineries. But the Saudis are not going to sit there do nothing. They're going to strike back. And the Houthis will strike back as well, and then it escalates, and that's it. So it is something that is not very good for the oil prices, which right now is going to spike a lot. Now, just to be very clear, in 2019, a single attack on Aramco sent the oil prices spike up 15%. We shall see on Monday what will happen. Or maybe they quickly rush a peace. I don't think so. I don't think a peace arrangement can be struck so fast. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is now keeping everybody guessing what he's going to do. Well, he have issued threats now. To be fair, Donald Trump is famous for issuing empty threats. But now he's saying, I'm considering a massive attack. He also said that, I don't think Iran is ready for a deal. Then he also said that, I think the Iranians are hungry for a deal. And now, of course, the Pakistanis are doing some back channel talks between Tehran and Washington, running around like a pendulum to make sure they try to mediate. I'm more skeptical this time because Tehran being bitten by the Americans many times is not going to cave in so fast. So I don't think this time around a peace can be arranged so quickly, but it's hard to say. But I do know that Donald Trump will and is capable of manipulating markets and try to restore some of the turbulence. So the US military pressure is still going on. They're still striking the Iranians non-stop, and suddenly they stop, and then they go again. So this keeps the world under suspense, and the Iranians doesn't like it. The Iranians, of course, are also stepping up attacks on the Gulf countries. So right now, it's just one big mess. Now, the Iranians, meanwhile, Worsened, it's not just attacking those Gulf countries really, maybe run out targets. The Iranians now are warning not just the United States, but also warning United Kingdom. He says that UK base that are housing American military capabilities and facilities are deemed as now legitimate targets. And any of you European nations that are hosting US operations, I warn you first, you could face consequences. So they are going all out to drag everybody in. I'm actually quite surprised they are trying to do that. So I'm not so sure whether that's the right military strategy, but I think by them issuing this threat, they are quite serious. So far, the Iranians don't issue empty threats. Donald Trump issues a lot of empty threats. So we shall see how this thing will unfold. Now, the British is not some walkover. The British is a strong military power as well. The British is ready for war. The UK government said we are ready 24/7. And if you were to hit the British, then you just unite the friends of your enemy. Actually, I'm just wondering why you do that. And I also wonder if the Iranians hit the UK, will it trigger NATO Article 5 obligation? Means you hit one, you hit all. So will the whole NATO come against the Iranians? If they do, that will be music to Donald Trump's ears because that's exactly what Donald Trump wants. But the Iranians will be stupid to drag the UK in. But it's hard to say right now because war is a complicated thing and an emotional thing. So oil is now clearly a weapon that every country is now fearful of, and the Iranians and the Houthis are using. They are now missile strike, drone strikes towards oil facilities, oil ships. Oil prices are going up. And the worst part is if the oil prices escalate to a global inflation, then the central banks will have to be forced to increase interest rate. Then God help us all for our stock prices because it's going to fall really very hard, like what we've seen in 2022. So what should investors like us look out for? Well, there are 5 indicators. Will the oil prices continue to go up above $100 and maybe 120? If it goes above 120, that'll be very serious. If it goes above 150, that's a calamity. Will the Straits of Hormuz resume oil supply going to be disrupted permanently? Will the Bab el-Mandeb Straits, the Red Sea, continue to be disrupted, or they're going to restore, right? So these are 2 things you see. Are there more tit-for-tat attacks between the Saudis and the Houthis? And will there be more oil refinery attack and the tankers attack? And will Donald Trump deliver finally the massive attack he says at Iran? Every of these things will have an impact to the oil market and as a result, the stock market. So I think we should all look out for it. But once the oil prices goes up significantly, then it's very clear that there will be global inflation. And once global inflation, forget about interest rate cut. We're all talking about interest rate hike right now. And I think the Federal Reserve will have no choice, even though they hate it, will have no choice but increase interest rate, and that will crash the stock market. So what are the possible scenarios moving forward? There are 3 possibilities. Number 1 is if suddenly the peace talks succeed between the Americans and the Iranians, that'll be an act of miracle, but miracles do happen. Or the Saudis and the Houthis, then oil prices will fall, then equities will recover, and that's great. Now, probability of that happening, I consider low. Now, low-level war continuing is a high probability likelihood. Basically, it means that they will fight, stop, fight, stop, fight, stop, fight, stop, da da ting ting, da da ting ting in Chinese. But this also means that it's a war of attrition, war that doesn't seem to stop, and that's going to be very bad. And of course, is there a chance of major regional escalation? I think now the chance is very high. So I would think that it will be more than somewhere between a low to medium high. So I think that is a likelihood right now. So we should all prepare for all these possibilities. So the Middle East war has surprisingly escalated tremendously just over the 1 or 2 weeks and is now entering a dangerous chapter. And financial markets and geopolitical turbulence are often linked together. One missile, one drone hit at wrong place, and all this escalate beyond control. I already told you, you need to monitor these 5 indicators, and now you need to be very careful. Let's not forget that we have a magnificent 6 crashing and left one magnificent, which is Apple haven't crashed yet. So now we have got the AI story now chilling off. We've got a Middle East situation now causing markets to be unstable. So in short, what we're looking at is a possibility of a market crash. We're not 100% sure it will happen, but if it happens, you need to be ready. So let's get ourselves ready to be trained and make sure that we are all well-versed with what to do when the market do have a downdraft. Preparation is important. Psychological management is important. Getting ready a dry powder is important. Knowing where to fire, when to fire is important. Okay. So anyway, watch my live stream. I'll quite update you on this development. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you tonight. Bye-bye.